Hello and welcome to another episode of The Final Whistle, a Lewiston Tribune sports podcast. I'm Sam Taylor, sports reporter with the Lewiston Tribune and the Moscow Pullman Daily News. And with me is the one and only Trevor Junt. Welcome, Trevor.
What's up, Sam? How you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
Pretty good. Again, sports reporter for the Lewiston Tribune and the Moscow Pullman Daily News. Excited to be here, Sam.
Awesome. We got a jam-packed show for you today. It's a great time to be a baseball fan here in the LC Valley as Lewis Clark State won their first Cascade Conference tournament championship since 2022. The Lewiston Bengals are 5A and Empire League champions. We got a bunch of other championships to talk about, and then we'll wrap it up with some Idaho football as they finished their spring practice a couple weeks ago. But now is our chance to catch up on everything happening up there in Moscow. Starting with the Warriors and their Cascade Conference tournament championship. Again, the first time they've won the Cascade Conference tournament in 3 years there. Pretty awesome achievement for the Warriors, especially in a season that has had its ups and downs, and a lot of downs early on. I mean, I think with the kind of the tough schedule that the Warriors play, it's easy to think that, this team is just not built like the last teams, like the two teams, a couple of years ago that went to back-to-back championships, or, the teams that certainly Warriors fans are used to that have, won back-to-back championships overall. And so it's especially for Jake Taylor, in his 8 years on the job or so, and to not have won a championship, I'm sure that certainly weighs on him, I'm sure. But he's doing a lot of things right, and this weekend was evidence of the Warriors just being on the right path.
Yeah, I mean, Noah Weintraub walked him off. I think that it's just a full-on team effort to win the Cascade Conference. Obviously, that's going to be a full-on team effort, but Charlie Updegrave was really important. Noah Weintraub was important. Garrett Bivacqua was important. I don't know. They just kept hitting, and they were hitting well. In the first game that I covered,
Oregon Tech, right?
Oregon Tech, yeah, I think they played Oregon Tech, yeah, and
the 17-inning game.
17-inning game, yeah. They lost that game, the 17-inning game, which is the longest in program history, and they won the first game too. But they just had a trouble hitting. They couldn't get anything going hidden. And then in this tournament, I think the game that I covered in this tournament, Charlie Updegrave hit a homer. And Jacob Marquez hit a homer back to back, and they just got started on the Warriors offense. It just got going. So I think that was important. It was the offense to get going, not just the pitching.
Totally. And you talk about parts of the lineup contributing that that have had their ups and downs. Like Jacob Marquez, he was at Washington State. He was a Coug in 2021. Ended up transferring to Lewis Clark State, and he's been kind of a fixture there in the hot corner at third base. And to have him have the success that he did, he had 3 hits in the final game that they played on Sunday over British Columbia, and that was just critical. Great to see him having a great day at bat. And then Charlie Updegrave, I think Charlie and honestly the entire Warrior team should send a thank you letter to Hazel's, because in a conversation with them this last week, I found out that Hazel's in Clarkston, the breakfast place on Bridge Street, is their go-to breakfast joint. So Hazel's, you may want to sponsor the Warrior baseball team, because they certainly love you. Charlie Updegrave described. Actually, do you want to know what Charlie Updegrave's go-to order is?
He gets 2 meals, right?
Pretty much, yeah. He gets the Hungry Man, and the Hungry Man is, I asked, what is Hungry Man? And it's he said 3 red potatoes, 2 eggs, choice of bacon or sausage or both. Why not? And then he gets a waffle on the side. It's a full waffle meal that has another side of bacon or whatever, and the waffles. And his comment, Charlie Updegrave's comment was, Ike George, the Warriors senior shortstop, kind of a smaller guy than Charlie, but still a great athlete. That waffle meal is Ike's whole meal. And for Charlie, that he gets those 2 things and he's ready to go. And so Hazel's, you may want to sponsor the Warriors, because you're feeling them, especially their offensive surge as of late, it would seem.
Speaking of that, do you have a favorite restaurant in Lewiston or Clarkson that you go to, that you frequent?
I would say I want to shout out the Mango Tree on Main Street.
Oh my gosh, yes. We went there just on Sunday, and I got the butter chicken, and I got a 4-spice level, which was pretty good, and it just kind of blew me away. And the garlic naan, ooh, golden stuff, man.
Yeah, I certainly found myself typing faster today after eating that. And so, for the Warrior baseball team, that's Hazel's. For your Lewiston Tribune sports department, that's the Mango Tree. So shout out Mango Tree, shout out Hazel's. Thanks for feeling us. It's much appreciated.
And next was Lewiston baseball. I mean, Lewiston won the district tournament in the 5A in the Empire. They beat Moscow 4-1. I was at that game, and Zach Bambasino, he's the guy that really stood out. I think he threw 58 strikes on 94 pitches, and it was just lights out during that game. Pitched the full game, 7 innings, and Lewiston had a rough season. They it was tough for them. I think they're 13 and 15 or so, and it was just kind of tough for them to get going during the season. Darren Trainer, the head coach, was crying after the game, talking to me, like just tearing up about Lewiston baseball and how tough the team is and how hard it was to get there. Very, very cool moment, I think, for Lewiston and them to win the district tournament. What did you see with the Lewiston Moscow game, Sam?
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, you look at the Bengals and just the season they had, and you covered their Battle of the Bridges, or Battle of the Bats, as they called it, against Clarkston. Lewiston was dominant against competition like Clarkston, and then they got to kind of a lull in league play where maybe they were losing more than they were winning.
I think injuries also hurt them quite a bit.
Yeah,
there was a few key injuries.
Who were the key injuries that they had?
They had a pitcher that got injured, and then they had their first baseman Keaton something. He got injured as well, and it was just like pretty important to lose those guys. Those guys were like top guys in their team, and really they just toughened up. The team did and came through in the end. Beating Moscow's tough. Moscow is 15-9, and they're a great team. That they've pretty much done really well this season. So really impressive from Lewiston there.
Yeah, I mean the thing about baseball is that it's dependent so much on the matchups and the day, the weather, the temperature, all that stuff, and so I kind of liked what obviously it was a tough moment, but what Moscow's coach said,
Yeah, Griffin Rod said.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
he said that anybody could win a game at any time. He that's what he said before this. He said that in the game before this, and then he said that they just played better than Lewiston just played better in Moscow, and that's why they won. And that's like the beauty of baseball. He said to me is anybody can win any game at any time.
Yeah, and the nice part for both these teams is that they still have a path forward. Lewiston, obviously, with that win, clinched themselves a hosting privileges for the Super Regionals or the play-in or whatever Idaho is calling it. It's going to be more baseball in Lewiston. That's what matters. And so you'll have that, coming up soon. When is Friday. On Friday? Yeah. Meanwhile, Moscow heads down to Boise. And so quite the trip ahead for the Bears, but the season's still alive. There's still a chance and still more baseball to be played.
Plus, they're defending state champions, so they know what they're doing. They definitely know what they're doing.
Yeah, they know what they're doing. And it's interesting. Another thing that's interesting about Moscow is that Griffin Rod said that last year's team was comprised of a bunch of guys who had played together since Little League and were just super close. And that this year's team is a little bit more mixed in terms of age groups. Like you've got kids, obviously still the returners that played together since Little League, but you've got like this younger crop of players that maybe didn't play in lockstep with the older kids, and now they've learned to be a team. And he said that's a beautiful thing, and that's what team sports is all about, is learning to be a team and coming together. And so I think that's going to help them well. It's help them well into this playoff season. And so Bears they've been winning all year, and so one game won't define their season.
As you said, and as he said, they played since Little League together, and then this team is like a hodgepodge group of guys that didn't exactly know each other at the start of the season. There's important guys like Butch Kiblin, Connor Isaacson, I think is really important. Yeah. Andrew Hurley, Sam Rigney is important to this team. There's a bunch of like top guys that are pretty important to the team, but just the team that gelled is the team that really showed out in the game before Lewiston when they won against Lakeland. And so like, as you said, this team was a hodgepodge group, and it was like very different from the team before that won the state championship.
Yeah, so the May is an amazing month for baseball. Of course, Lewis Clark State Warriors, they're back in town. They've got the opening round presented by Avista that they get to host. So that's going to be fun, coming up next Monday through Thursday. And then Lewiston, obviously, on Friday, getting to host baseball, the Super Regionals.
It's literally called the NAIA World Series presented by Avista, right?
Opening round presented by Avista, and then the World Series of the Avista NIA World.
I'm not a fan of that at all, man.
I mean, Avista keeps my lights on, literally. So
Avista keeps my lights on too.
No qualms of Avista. Thank you, Avista.
But it just seems like an ugly name for a tournament, I guess.
I mean, it doesn't necessarily roll off the tongue, but I think Avista NIA World Series is the better name of the two, personally. Anyways, with some other results from around the region. We had our Cody Wendt got a chance to be in Orofino for the Potlatch Troy White Pine League championship for high school baseball. And in that was a real pitcher's duel. That's the kind of thing where, you turn on, it's Clayton Kershaw versus Justin Verlander, and it's just like, oh man, this is going to be one for the ages. And it certainly was, as you had Logan Carpenter of Potlatch dueling Dominic Holden of Troy, and Carpenter ending up, hanging just one more zero than Holden did as the Loggers won 1-0.
I think Holden also technically had a no-hitter and still lost the game.
Wow.
So that's very tough.
How does that happen?
Well, I don't know. I think errors, and then there was one that was, Cody said it was a hit, but the bookkeepers called it an error, a hit past third base, and he got a guy on second. He stole second, and that's. Oh, I guess he didn't throw a no-hitter because that player hit a hit on the third baseline. The walk-off. Yeah, so I guess he threw a one-hitter, but still, that's an excellent performance. Yeah.
Yeah, neither pitcher should be upset, though obviously one did leave, feeling much better about themselves as a champion, and that's just, the nature of it. But it's I mean, that's kind of what you want to see from championship baseball is, those two teams literally dueling it out. And so fans in Orofino from Potlatch and Troy were treated to a real great one on that other weekend.
And then the other one was Orofino softball.
Yeah.
They just won their White Pine League. Oh no, 3A Central Idaho championship game against Grangeville today.
Yeah.
16-7 was the final score. Every batter had at least one hit. 7 out of 9 of the batters had at least 2 hits. Eight players had RBIs. And the pitching was great. Sean Difference said that it was very different because pitching has been a struggle for them all season. And then Reese Dale, Kennedy Coleman, and Sadie Olive came in and pitched, and they just performed well. So that's really what pushed Orofino into the championship game.
Right on. And the nice part is that both Orofino and Grangeville, their seasons will continue as Grangeville won their loser-out game against St. Mary's to extend their season. And so chance that those two teams could meet again, or, see how that goes. And so exciting baseball all around. Yeah. Or softball all around, yeah.
Absolutely.
And then our next topic is you got a chance to kind of transitioning to college football. You got a chance to catch up with Idaho head football coach Thomas Ford Jr. about a week after the Vandals spring game. But what did you talk about with Coach Ford? And I guess what's brewing for the Vandals? Obviously, they just brought in a transfer quarterback.
He talked about a lot of things. He talked about the transfer portal. He talked about how the team's looking now, and then also just how they progressed through spring ball. The most interesting thing that he said to me was he wasn't confident in the quarterback play in Jack Wagner or Nick Josefek. And he talked about how Joshua Wood is a new transfer. He's going to make an immediate impact next season. So it looks like Wood will probably start when it comes fall. I mean, he's definitely going to compete for the job, but it looks like right now he's going to start. And then the other guys he talked about was like a three-headed monster of Art Williams, Elisha Cummings, and Nate Thomas. That running back group is excellent. Ford's a running back guy. Obviously, he used to be a running back coach at Oregon State. And I think that's just important to his whole offense. Any questions that you have about Idaho in general?
Yeah, so I'm excited for Joshua Wood. This is a good opportunity for him, especially in the spring portal window where these guys get a second chance. I honestly think you're right. It's Joshua's job to lose, but I could see a reality where maybe Nick is like the main guy and Joshua's in like 25% of the time for these running packages, or Joshua wins the job outright, and then maybe Nick's in for some packages as well, or Rocco.
I understand that. Exactly. That's what you're saying, though. Rocco Koch, I think that's the running back quarterback. Yeah. I mean, the running quarterback. I don't think that it's going to be like a split competition. I think it's going to be one guy or another, and Rocco Koch will come in for like specialized plays, obviously. But I think it's like you said, it's Joshua Wood's job to lose, and if he does win the job, I think he's going to play 95% of the snaps. Yeah. He's not gonna go off the field, I don't think. I'd be surprised if Joseph wins the job. He was kind of consistent through the middle, which is a Linehan offense like thing. But I don't know. I'm not fully confident in Joseph, and Wagner is just like rough. It's deep passes, and it's complete those or don't, and throw interceptions. So I wouldn't even be surprised to see Wagner transfer and try to get out of Idaho and try to get a starting job on a different team. Because this just does not seem like his offense or his team that he's going to start for. And it just looks like Wood is the guy for the job right now.
Yeah. What about the Idaho defense?
Well, I think I think Court Dennison is like the main guy. He coached at Louisville for a while, which is I don't know, full D1 FBS football. He was important at Oregon. He was a linebackers coach at Oregon. He's the new defensive coordinator, and I think he's making a difference. I mean, one thing that always stands out to me is that Dylan Lane called him a genius. He said they have over 40 plays in their defense, which is a lot of plays in defense. And yeah, I mean, talking about the guys that are important, I mean, there's the defensive line group is just so good. Uh, Maurice Himes, Donovan Parham, Matthias McLean. Those guys are important to the defensive line and just important to the defense in general. And then cornerbacks, there's some new faces at cornerback that will make a difference. Linebackers, they're still looking for a linebacker in the transfer portal. Ford said, so we'll see there. Dylan Lane got injured during one of the scrimmages, so we'll see if he recovers fast enough for next season or how bad the injury is. Yeah, I don't know. The defensive line looks terrific. The defense just looked terrific all throughout the scrimmages, and they lost the spring game, but they were. I mean, like the spring game was kind of designed for offense to succeed, so it was tough for them. But I think that's gonna be a shutdown defense. I think that's gonna be more impressive than the offense coming fall.
Come August 30th in Gisa Field at Martin Stadium, Washington State versus Idaho. Do you have any early predictions of how that Battle of the Palouse might go?
It's just so tough because they're just such different ball programs, I guess. Zeviak House, I don't know. He's gonna have a difficult time against the confusing defensive Court Dennison, and there's gonna be no tape to watch. That's the thing too. Yeah. This is a fully new team. There's no tape to watch on the Court Dennison defense. There's no tape to watch even on the Matt Lanahan offense, really. So it's going to be difficult for Washington State to really match up against the Idaho defense or the new Idaho offense. And also, it will look different from Joshua Wood as well. I think Zeviakis will struggle against that defense. But I don't have a prediction for score. I think we're way too early there. What are you thinking about Washington State there?
Yeah, I think we'll obviously talk about this all summer and into August as we get a look at their respective fall camps. But Washington State, it seems to it's interesting that their advantage as well seems to be defense. I mean, that makes sense because Rogers is a defensive-minded coach, was the defensive coordinator for South Dakota State, and just kind of brought most of his 16 transfers, 10 of which are 10 of those transfers are defensive players. And so you brought guys like, their safeties, Matt Durant's, Caleb Frankill. I'm gonna stop saying names I don't know how to pronounce, but I'll learn those names soon enough. But a lot of these guys that performed really well on the FCS level, obviously at Idaho's level, and were the cream of the crop. And so they're getting this FBS opportunity. It's kind of a nice. I'm sure they don't look at it like a warm up, but it's not a warm up. It's a great introduction though to their new place because they get to face not a familiar opponent, but an opponent that's similar to the types of opponents that they faced previously in their college careers, like the best of the FCS, which Idaho, I believe, still is. And so it'll be interesting to see how that matchup goes. I'm not going to share a score prediction as well, and we'll talk about it all summer. But I think this will be a defensive game. I'm reminded of their last meeting between Washington State and Idaho. Obviously, completely different programs. There's only a few familiar faces, both coaching staff wise, and between the rosters, I'd be surprised if the number of players left combined is more than 20. And so that's just the nature of college football these days. But it's going to be, Deion Henley, a future NFL linebacker saving the day, but diving interception for Washington State to walk out of that with a victory. And I think we may be in for another dramatic Battle of the Palouse.
That'd be a blast to watch, a blast to cover, I think.
Yeah.
I think it will be fun to watch. I mean, again, fully new teams on both sides, so full new 11, basically, full new coaching staff. So I don't know. It will be definitely an interesting matchup, and we'll see what happens come fall. We don't know how these teams are going to look. Like, obviously, spring ball is one thing, but the teams evolve so much when it comes to fall that we'll see how they perform during fall practices and fall camp, and then we'll I guess use that to really measure how the teams are looking come August 30th.
Not to mention the teams have some new faces all around the ball. And so it's not just Joshua Wood that's new for Idaho. They've brought in some other transfers, including an offensive lineman from Washington State. Washington State's brought in an offensive lineman from Idaho, as well as an offensive lineman and a linebacker and a defensive lineman from New Mexico State. They brought in a cornerback and a linebacker from SMU, Southern Methodist University in Texas. And so they are the spring transfer portal is honestly a great opportunity for them to see their needs and address their needs when it comes to their roster. And I think both programs are taking advantage of that. And so that's going to change these teams dramatically, I think.
And FBS and FCS like transfers portal is different. Obviously, I think Idaho's only signed 6 guys so far. Wood, Gabe Hoffman, a tight end, Nathan Pritchard from Washington State, Hyson Dalton, a cornerback from Furman, Zach Westig from Portland State. He's a safety, and a defensive tackle, Josh Macon from Bakersfield. But Idaho's not done. They're going to keep continuing in the transfer portal, try to get new guys. You said offensive linemen, linebackers, and what other pieces that they need to like really fit the puzzle is important. That's what Ford said. So I don't know. It's definitely going to be interesting when the transfer portal ends for the FCS.
Totally. Yeah, Wazoo, their number of spring additions is 9, so it's not too far ahead of Idaho. And I think you're definitely seeing less movement than the fall, but still some significant movement for sure.
Yeah. Because this is Ford's only second time using the transfer portal from earlier this year and then now to the spring. It's very different. Yeah. He said that this time he knows what he's looking for. That's like a big difference from when it was fall. It's like they know what they need, they know what they have, and they know what they need to look for in the transfer portal. And then also one thing that Ford does is he doesn't just go for guys that are great players, he goes for guys that are good dudes. Yeah. He wants to build a good team with a good culture, and it's not, he said they didn't want to get smart players and physical players. They're always looking for physicality, but also getting guys that did not let the Vandals beat the Vandals was an important quote he said. He wants those smart guys that will fit into the culture and fit into the team well, rather than just like terrific players that may not fit into the team culture.
Sweet. Awesome. Well, Trevor, it's an exciting time of year. We'll have plenty of more baseball coverage as well as some more, all the sports, football coverage as these rosters continue to take shape. The transfer portal for college basketball is still open for in terms of just like players in the portal finding new homes.
Oh, Alton Hamilton.
Oh, yeah, Alton Hamilton. Speaking of the transfer portal, we have obviously Lewis Clark State's Alton Hamilton, who the only player in the Cascade Conference to average a double-double, is now an Eastern Washington Eagle. So fans locally can travel up to Moscow to see him play the Vandals. That'll be certainly interesting. But I guess just what kind of impact does that have on Lewis Clark State men's basketball losing, like arguably, or not arguably, but definitively their best player?
Well, one thing that we need to keep in mind is, the thing with Alton Hamilton is he led the team in so many statistics. Yeah. Let's see. I'll pull it up here. It's minutes per game, free field goals made, free throws made, total points per game, offensive rebounds, defensive rebounds, total rebounds, rebounds per games, assists, and block shots. That's 11 or 12 different things that he led the team on. He was the player of the year in the Cascade Conference, and he was a first team All-American. That makes a huge difference for Eastern Washington. Yeah. This is a guy that you can come in and start immediately. He's kind of short, probably 6'9", but you can start him at small forward, power forward, and he's going to make a difference. He's going to make an immediate impact, I think, when he transfers to Eastern Washington.
Totally. And some may, think, is, being a role player or maybe he earns a starting role, but being, likely a role player in Eastern Washington versus, the star of LC State and winning, contending for NAIA championships, is that really a step up? But I think you look at just how college basketball works now, where you have, guys staying no more than a year or two in one spot before transferring and hopefully leveraging their time there for something larger. You look at Dylan Darling, who started at Washington State, not nearly as successful as Alton Hamilton early on in his career, but just went to Idaho State and was the Big Sky Player of the Year with incredible numbers. And now he's a member of Rick Pitino's staff in at St. John's in the Big Apple.
Yeah,
and so
a step up after step up.
Yeah, and so now he has a chance to play, in March Madness for real. Thank you so much for spending time with us and letting us be a part of your day, and we'll see you this time next week. For Trevor Junt, I'm Sam Taylor. Thanks for listening to The Final Whistle.